begin with a Fox News alert. President Trump is on the ground today in Tennessee, visiting people whose lives were ripped apart by tornadoes. Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino, and this is the Daily Briefing.
I have a message for the families of those that lost their lives. We love them. They're special people. It's an incredible place, incredible state, tremendous heart. Already you see people rebuilding. I mean, it took place literally hours ago, a couple of days, and they're already rebuilding.
The president promising to provide whatever support is needed. At least 24 people died after the twisters tore through central Tennessee. But the tornado is just one of the crises the Trump administration is dealing with right now. There's also the coronavirus. And after stopping in Tennessee, the president will head to Atlanta to meet with officials at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The meeting comes as the administration responds to questions over its handling of the outbreak, a big focus on the number of testing kits. We have Team Fox coverage. Jonathan Sari standing by at the CDC. But first, let's go back to Steve Harrigan reporting live from Cookeville, Tennessee. That's about 80 miles east of Nashville. Steve, the president's visit, I'm sure, gave some people a bit of a boost today.
It really did. There was a real question mark in many people's minds here whether the president would simply fly over in Marine One and look at the wreckage from a few thousand feet up. Instead, he landed and met with people for about 35 minutes here on the ground, hugging, shaking hands. This is really a community that's been traumatized. This is the worst of it right here in Cookeville. 18 dead in Putnam County, 8 dead on the one street the president was at. He met with them, shook their hands, and heard what they needed. Here's what the president had to say.
And we're going to be with them. We're going to be with them all the way. And I can tell you, the governor feels the same as I do. And the mayors, I want to just congratulate you.
I think you could tell from the
I was just there less than 24 hours ago. It is horrendous. Those people's lives have been terrorized. That whole community has been terrorized. It was just like a bomb blowed up. It wouldn't have been no different if they would have been on the front lines in Afghanistan or Pakistan or Iraq or Iran or Turkey. Those people's lives have been totally turned upside down. And anybody's life is turned upside down whenever they're involved in something this enormous and this horrendous. It's not good to go through something like this. It not only affects you physically, but it affects you emotionally, and depending upon the person, it can affect you psychologically. It can they can be devastating in many different ways.
I think you could tell from the president's remarks he was really impressed by the suddenness of this storm, the fact that it struck at 1 o'clock in the morning and really caught people by surprise. I think also the widespread, complete destruction the president also noted was simply unbelievable. Dana?
A little bit about how people are helping and what else we could do.
There's been some high-profile donations. The NFL Tennessee Titans gave $1 million. The singer Taylor Swift gave $1 million for recovery efforts. But we've been seeing a lot of volunteers here on the ground coming from all over. Some of them picking through the wreckage here to try and find items of value or for memory, a lot of photographs. And people also lining up for hours at a time to give blood. So really, volunteers, their hearts going out, trying to help in any way they can here, Dana.
All right, Steve Harrigan, thank you. And later this afternoon, President Trump will visit the CDC headquarters in Atlanta, and that's where Fox News correspondent Jonathan Sari is right now. I think the president's on his way to where you are, Jonathan.
He is indeed. I'm standing in front of the CDC's main campus, which the president will be visiting later today. But overnight, For a moment, it appeared that this trip was in jeopardy. For a while, there was concern that the coronavirus outbreak might have affected the very agency tasked with stopping it. Fortunately, it turned out to be a false alarm.
They thought there was a problem at CDC with somebody that had the virus. It turned out negative, so we're seeing if we can do it.
The president is closely monitoring the situation on board the Grand Princess. The cruise ship has been staying out at sea off the coast of California until passengers can be fully tested for the virus, with kits flown in on a military helicopter. State and federal health officials became concerned when a 71-year-old man with pre-existing health conditions died shortly after returning to California from a previous cruise on board that same vessel. Nearly 3,500 passengers and crew remain on board. Today, the Director General of the World Health Organization urged all nations to make identifying and containing coronavirus infections a top priority.
Every day we slow down the epidemic is another day closer to having vaccines and therapeutics which can in turn prevent infections and save lives.
And the New Jersey Department of Education is issuing guidance to local schools on how to provide in-home instruction should it get to the point that there are mandatory school closings. Fortunately, it has not gotten to that point, at least not on a statewide basis just yet. Dana, back to you.
Thank you, Jonathan Sarable. I'm sure we'll be in touch with you as the president goes to Atlanta this afternoon. Let's bring in Fox News Sunday anchor Chris Wallace. Wonderful to have you. There are many roles that a president has to play, and today is one of those where you can see you, of course, had the jobs numbers this morning, and we added 273,000 jobs, unemployment at 3.5% for the last month, and yet the president dealing with a Dow that's again down today about 600 points, a devastating tornado in Tennessee, and now going to the CDC just to see if we can try to reassure people that they've got a handle on things.
Right, and that is one of the roles that we ask our presidents to play, Dana, and that is consoler-in-chief. This president has, unfortunately, like all presidents, had to go to the scene of some natural disasters, hurricanes, in this case, these series of tornadoes, and obviously you can't imagine the kind of boost it gives to people there to know that the president of the United States, and in a sense the country, is behind him. Much trickier, though, when it gets to the coronavirus. The president can sign the bill as he did today, $8.3 billion in federal response. He can go to the CDC. He can talk about it, but to a certain degree, he's as helpless as all of us are, because nobody quite knows how this coronavirus is going to go, how serious it's going to get, how much it's going to spread, how long it's going to last. And so the most powerful man in the world is, to a certain degree, sitting there like all the rest of us, kind of waiting on events. He can shape them a lot more than we can, but not ultimately he can't, not with this virus.
He actually had a little bit of a message last night about that at our Fox News town hall that he did last night with Brett and Martha. Take a look at this, where he was talking about plans for every possibility.
We could have a very long-term plan. We hope that doesn't happen, but we have plans for every single possibility, and I think that's what we have to do. We hope it doesn't last too long.
And to your point, Chris, there are things that he can't control, which is the response that other countries are having. Listen to Secretary of State Pompeo on China and their role in this.
When you have an entity like the Chinese Communist Party who is providing data sets that aren't transparent and aren't clear, this is the risk that is increased. And it's why wherever we're working, South Korea, Italy, other places have had big outbreaks, we welcome the fact that they're open and transparent. We need to do the same all across the world, and when we do, I'm confident we've taken this seriously. We'll continue to work, and we will reduce risk not only to Americans but to people all around the world from this virus.
This is an interesting exercise in crisis management, because you can do all you can in the United States, but there are outside factors affecting it too.
Well, exactly. And there was a number yesterday that new infections that are 17 times greater outside of China than they are inside of China. But I think anybody that saw that statistic, which would seem to indicate China is beginning to get a handle on the location where it initially broke out, also wonders and is somewhat skeptical, is China leveling with us? Do we know about all the new infections there? We may well, but you hear those numbers and there's always some doubt. Secretary Pompeo, of course, very critical about China on a number of fronts over recent weeks and months.
And this weekend, you will have Dr. Anthony Fauci from the NIH on Fox News Sunday. And I think it's been interesting to watch how important it is for people to see credible, really smart, calming people like Dr. Fauci that will be on your show this weekend.
Yeah, somebody called him an expert on infectious disease. He's the expert on infectious disease. He's been involved in leading the fight. You, I'm sure, had to deal with him during the Bush administration against infectious disease, I think going back to the HIV/AIDS crisis. So he is the leading expert in the government response to this. And, you know, there has been some concern and some criticism of President Trump that sometimes the wish is father to the thought, that he's talking more about what he hopes will happen than what is actually happening. And one of the things that Fauci, there's no political spin here. It is straight scientific fact. And we'll be talking to him on Sunday. Our lead guest, what's the very latest on the spread of it? What's the latest on the lethality of it? What the government is doing, what it can't do, and how people can protect themselves. So if you want to know, as we wake up Sunday morning, where we stand in the fight against the coronavirus or the response to it, Anthony Fauci is the man.
Couldn't find a better guest for this Sunday, or a better host, of course, Chris Wallace. Thank you. We'll see you in a little bit.